was a heinous act which Pakistan executed. India will not sit back. The message is very clear to Pakistan. The last time it happened with shallow surgical strikes. The second time it happened with deep air strikes. Who knows what kind of a response the next time the Indian security forces will give, or what the government of India decides to do. I think that messaging is very, very clear. All parties came together on 22nd of February 1994, which declared that the whole of Jammu and Kashmir belongs to India. The Defence Minister, the Raksha Mantri, has stated it. Excellent. It's a reminder. This is a good message to Pakistan that we have not forgotten. We will keep reminding you about this.
A lot changed in Jammu Kashmir and India-Pakistan after the Pulwama attack. How do you see this change? How do you see this last 1 year?
Let me begin by expressing my very deep regret for the very unfortunate martyrdom of 40 of our armed police personnel on the 14th of February 2019 at Pulwama. It was a heinous act which Pakistan executed, and it started the year 2019 on a very, very negative note. But having said that, India responded immediately, keeping the escalation under our control, and by 27th of February carried out the action at Balakot, which is very well known, and ensured that this did not remain only in the military domain. It went into the diplomatic and very largely into the psychological domain. Diplomatically, I think for the next couple of months, India upped the ante and ensured that Pakistan was isolated internationally. Clearly, the message going to it that it could not carry out this activity, this kind of an act in India, and not expect a major response. I think that was the difference which was there this time. The clear messaging that each time Pakistan carries out an incident of this kind, it needs to remain forewarned that India will not sit back. India will respond, and in what manner it will respond, of course, the options will always remain in front of India. What also happened was that the 14th of February and the 27th of February incidents, and subsequently the control which the security forces managed to establish over the security situation in Jammu and Kashmir, I think emboldened the government of India, emboldened public opinion that some momentous political decisions could be taken. And the 5th of August decisions to abrogate Article 35A and 370 and also restructure the administrative machinery of the whole of Jammu and Kashmir could be taken at that time, and subsequently the situation so handled that there was no major upsurge which was expected as far as the Kashmir Valley was concerned. So with all this kind of confidence, I think the year ended in 2019 with the situation in Jammu and Kashmir largely under our control. But entry into 2020, I think we need to be forewarned that success and failure should not be classified in a situation such as this. Because it is a complex situation which can always go wrong with one other act being executed by our adversaries. By and large, the public in Jammu and Kashmir has been very supportive of what has happened, but it's not as if everything is entirely hunky-dory. There is a fair level of alienation which continues to exist, and much more needs to be done by us, many more miles to sleep in 2020, and I'm sure the government of India is fully aware of it and taking action as necessary.
After the Pulwama attack, there was a surgical strike on 26 February. Does the impact of India's strong action and willpower reflect in India-Pakistan's relationship at LOC? Would it be right to say that Pakistan must think of its actions now before taking any?
Well, let's see this in continuum from what happened on the 28th of September 2016, when the surgical strikes, not very deep, there were shallow surgical strikes which went in against the terrorist launch pads, both in the Jammu region and the Kashmir region. And the next time, this first thing happened after the Uri incident on the 18th of September 2016, and the next time It happened after the Pulwama incident within 13 days. So obviously the message is very clear to Pakistan that you cannot continue to act as you wish, and that our ability to absorb is also limited. We will always respond after suitable absorption, and the range of options that we have is unlimited. The last time it happened with shallow surgical strikes. The second time it happened with deep air strikes. Who knows what kind of a response the next time the Indian security forces will give, or what the government of India decides to do. I think that messaging is very, very clear. And it's gone across to Pakistan, the strategic community of Pakistan, the deep state of Pakistan. The fact that the international community is not supporting it, the fact that these kind of actions can escalate into a situation which is beyond Pakistan's control. I think Pakistan has to understand it and is understanding it. But having said that, Pakistan will continue to make a lot of mistakes. They will try and re-strategize, keep their options open to try and see how they can reinvent this strategy in Kashmir, how they can try and retrieve the situation which is clearly stripped out from under their feet. And in the process of doing this, they will make many mistakes. And those are the mistakes which will invariably cross the level of tolerance of the government of India. And that is where what will always invite a response.
How should peace prevalent after removal of Article 370 be seen? Now, gradually the deployed Central Armed Forces too have been removed from there.
I think the situation, classifying the situation into a success and a failure may not be the entirely correct way of looking at it. I would say this is a work in progress which is going on, and we have achieved a lot so far. But there's a tremendous amount of work yet to be done. Remember, at the end of the day, the center of gravity in such hybrid proxy conflicts is ultimately the public, the people of that region. And unless the people of the region are completely on board with you, I would not classify anything as complete success. Recent reports from the ground, personal reports which are coming to me sometimes, do indicate a positive stance as far as the public is concerned, but there are equally also some negative reports where people may not have taken fully to supporting what took place on 5th of August. So I think this is still work in progress. But the more important thing to understand from the security point of view is that this is not something which just happened on the 5th of August. I think we have to see the larger picture that in the last 3 years, to be specific, since 2016, and to be even more specific after the launch of Operation All Out sometime around the early part of 2017, what has happened is that India has particularly changed its strategy as far as fighting militancy or terrorism in Kashmir. All these years, 30 years, we were fighting only the terrorist. We were only using primarily the kinetic means and attempting perfunctorily to win over the population. We were not succeeding completely. And although neutralization was very, very effective, we have brought down the strength of terrorists from something close to 7,000 to what is existing today, which is less than 300. That is a classic success. But every year we killed that number of terrorists. For example, in 2018, we killed 254 terrorists. And we find that 190 new ones got recruited, 75 got infiltrated. So we almost 265 were recreated. So there was a system in place which was doing this whole thing. Let's call it an ecosystem. And this ecosystem comprises of many things. It comprises of human resources, who are the terrorists themselves, the separatists, the ideologues, many overground workers. You can classify them under different categories. You have the networks which are enabling the bringing in of wherewithal to fight the security forces. You have the information networks which are carrying out propaganda and communication strategy on part of Pakistan, and ideological, a tremendous amount of ideological footprint which is there. And lastly, the financial circuits, the financial networks which were ensuring that this whole situation was kept alive. I think what India started doing was, after 2017, is started targeting each of these. We may not have succeeded in everything, but definitely on the financial networks, we have made a lot of headway. We have made some headway on the information strategies that we have adopted. We have made a fair amount of headway, continue to make that headway against human resources, particularly against the overground workers now. I think all this has had a major impact on the security situation. And what we are seeing, therefore, after 5th of August is not just the artificial control through kinetic means. It is a comprehensive control over the situation, which has enabled about 10,000 odd CRPF soldiers, policemen to be withdrawn from Jammu and Kashmir. But this is not the end of the day. It's not as if we can declare victory. We are in February. The campaigning season starts in April. Pakistan has got very few options available to it, but it is re-strategizing. And I'm sure come April, May, you will find a new series of strategies probably panning out for which we need to be prepared.
Pakistan has been exposed after the Pulwama attack. The sword of being blacklisted by the ATF still hangs on them. Hafiz Saeed is facing a case in the terror court and the government of Pakistan is in huge debt. So how do you see the situation of Pakistan right now? You think their strength has increased?
See, let's relate to the events of 2019. There's no doubt that Pakistan came on the back foot because of what happened at Pulwama and subsequently what happened at Balakot. It also went on the back foot politically after 5th of August because it was taken completely by surprise and its options were very, very limited. It can choose to do a lot of things, calibrate activity, terrorist activity in Kashmir, diplomatically undertake a huge initiative, what it has taken all over the world to try and paint India in different colors. But having said that, I think what the Indian diplomatic campaign all over the world has been very largely successful. What is very important is that this must continue. We cannot sit back on our laurels and think that we have already achieved it and that Pakistan has been virtually blacklisted. I don't think Pakistan is going to be blacklisted. We have to understand in India, the public has to understand that Pakistan's geostrategic space is far more important than what we tend to appreciate. All the big powers have got their stakes there. China has got the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, its access to the Northwest Indian Ocean. The United States can only fight in Afghanistan with the support of Pakistan, or it can withdraw also only with the support of Pakistan. The Russians don't want a unstable kind of a situation in Central Asia, and Pakistan is one of the most populous countries, important countries in this region, can ensure that. So everyone has got something to take away from Pakistan, maybe something to give it also. And that is why I think they will take the situation of pressurizing Pakistan up to a point. And beyond that, it's a question of how we play it strategically, how we play it diplomatically. But I think Pakistan will remain in the grey list somewhere because a lot is happening in Afghanistan. And it's a very important year. 2020 is an election year in the United States. The United States is not going to take major decisions this year. They're only going to take major decisions to their own advantage, political advantage of President Trump as far as withdrawal is concerned. And for that, Pakistan is a necessity for them. So having said all this, Pakistan's deep state may yet decide to do something to try and retrieve the losing situation in Jammu and Kashmir. Although they really have very few options. But come April to October, as I said before, you can expect that something will happen. Some efforts will be made to try and do something big, for which we should need to be prepared.
Is it possible to prepare for the return of POJK? Are we ready at the army level for any such big decision?
There are two ways of looking at this. The first, there's no doubt that we need to reiterate and remind the public, remind Pakistan, remind ourselves that there is an existing resolution, a joint resolution of Parliament. All parties came together on 22nd of February 1994, which declared that the whole of Jammu and Kashmir belongs to India. There was complete political consensus in passing this resolution. That resolution stands, and that's our guiding light to ensure that we find the ways of ensuring that we continue to aspire to bring back all the territories of POJK. Having said that, I'm not sure whether people understand what is the meaning of a conflict spectrum. A conflict spectrum consists of activities of different kinds at different parts of the spectrum. Intensity can be high, intensity can be low. You can even have political war, you can even have hybrid war, you can have proxy war. The Chinese follow a system what is called 3 warfares, which is essentially cyber, media, and legal war. So the idea that everything can be gained by going to war, a physical, kinetic war, I think this needs a rethink in India. I think the strategic community and the public in general should be explained this. To put this kind of pressure on the government of India, that when is the government of India going to retrieve this territory back, I think is an unfair pressure on the government of India. The fact that the Defense Minister, the Raksha Mantri, has stated it, excellent. It's a reminder. This is a good message to Pakistan that we have not forgotten. We will keep reminding you about this. And we have the means, we have the capability, and we have the patience. All this combined together will ensure that Pakistan is kept on tenterhooks. With a failing economy, with $7 to $8 to $10 billion of foreign exchange reserves, Pakistan needs to remain warned that the mismatch between Indian capability and Pakistan capability is tremendous. Having said that, it's a complex matter, Gilgit-Baltistan and POK, because China is also deeply involved in it. And I'm sure we can invoke many aspects of the Wuhan spirit which is there between Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping to look at ways of, in the future, of how we can strategize as two nations, as two large, big nations, to ensure that these territories are not used for activities which are not advantageous to us. And at the same time, in the future, that these territories return where they belong to. So I think everything needs a long-term perspective, and we need not take any short-term actions or imagine that we should take these to any strategic advantage.
Should India openly support the Baloch rebels and Pashtun agitators, as Pakistan does in the case of Kashmir? Should India adopt the offensive policy instead of being defensive?
There's no doubt that Pakistan adopted a policy in 1989 of what they call a war by 1,000 cuts, a long proxy hybrid war, which was of low cost to them. Should India adopt a similar policy? Now, I really don't know, because even if we do, I'm not sure that anyone is going to announce it. I'm the last one who's going to announce it. And one of the things which Pakistan followed, strategies which it followed while adopting this policy, was the strategy of denial. The only thing which they talk about is that they are only carrying out supportive motivation for those who are freedom fighters, so-called freedom fighters in Jammu and Kashmir. Well, we can follow a similar policy, strategic denial. Pakistan, of course, has perfected that policy. We will need to learn a lot from the way that Pakistan has handled it. But I'm not sure that this quid pro quo is the best way of doing it. And even if we adopted such a policy, then I'm not sure whether any of us is going to speak about it. And it will pan out on ground, it will happen the way it has to happen, the manner in which Pakistan has followed it in Jammu and Kashmir. And I'm sure the government of India is fully seized of it, thinking about it. The fact that a 2-minute reference to Balochistan by Prime Minister Narendra Modi on the 15th of August 2016 created a turbulence in the entire environment around the world, from where all the Baloch nationalists suddenly emerged and started speaking about their possibility of independence, shows the potential, it proves the potential which exists of this kind of a thing being executed. I think Pakistan should take a lesson from it. They should take a lesson from it. They should understand their own vulnerability. India may have been vulnerable in Jammu and Kashmir. India may be vulnerable anywhere else, but Pakistan is not in a state where it is not vulnerable. It is extremely vulnerable. And its state of economy is such that I don't think they can absorb this kind of a strategy should India decide to follow it.
How can the Taliban's emergence in Afghanistan affect India after their deal failed with the US? Recently, TTP terrorist Ehsanullah Ehsan was chased away from prison. Do you think Pakistan is again cooking up something?
Yes, ripple effect, definitely. That's the terminology actually, which I always use. That you drop a pebble into the still waters of Afghanistan, if there are any still waters in Afghanistan, and there will be ripples formed, and the ripples will always travel to India. So anything which happens in Afghanistan, it's our area of interest and it will affect us. But having said that, it is such a complex situation with so many factors involved in it, and particularly in the year 2020. I don't think the United States is going to look at our interests or anyone else's interests. It is going to see its own interests and would want to withdraw its forces, leave behind very little there. For that, they need Pakistan. They may strike a deal with Taliban, and if that happens, then we will lose out a lot. I'm very certain that the government of India has already got its options in place and worked out its options, and looking for potential changes of situation and how it will be handled, what kind of a manner in which they will approach the Taliban if it comes at all to power, and power sharing, or what kind of a way that will happen. With all this happening there, Pakistan is going to be very deeply involved in Afghanistan for the better part of this year. And our experience shows that when Pakistan is deeply involved in Afghanistan, it generally tends to treat Jammu and Kashmir with a less focus. That will be to our advantage, definitely. It's not perhaps within Pakistan's capability to handle both Afghanistan and Jammu and Kashmir and look after its internal security situation with an equal amount of focus. So that'll be something to our advantage. But if Afghanistan, if a peace deal comes about, Pakistan will stand to advantage. There is a perception prevailing that as if like in 1989, terrorists, foreign terrorists, Taliban terrorists involved there can switch focus into Jammu and Kashmir and infiltrate here. I don't think that is entirely right. I think the Indian security capability, overall capability of what existed in 89 and what exists in 2020 is poles apart. Complete change. We have a very, very strong counter-infiltration grid. We have got a very strong presence all over Jammu and Kashmir. And any effort to try and reinvent what happened in 1989-90, I don't think is going to really succeed here. So having said that, it's a year with tremendous potential, but all kinds of things can happen. And we need to keep our intelligence focused, and we need to make sure that we think about whatever Pakistan can do against us and ensure that we have enough counteractions available among our options should something happen very big in Kashmir.
After the case of Wing Commander Abhinandan, there was a big debate that the Indian Air Force is weak in front of Pakistan, speaking of equipment and fighter planes. How much things have changed since the arrival of aircrafts like Chinook helicopter and Rafale?
Capability change, yes, in terms of capability change. Well, let's start by saying that the Indian Air Force is a very, very capable organization. And I think no one should see it from the point of view of just the incident which happened with Wing Commander Abhinandan. Also view it from the angle of the fact that on 27th of February it went in across almost undetected and targeted a major terrorist camp in Balakot. But having said that, let's also say that our optimum requirement is 45 squadrons. Okay, let's say 42 squadrons at a pinch. And today we are down to something like 30 squadrons, out of which many of them are outdated aircraft, antiquated aircraft. So we have to make up. There's no doubt about it, and that making up process has started with the induction of the Rafale, and we hope that progressively we can take much more strides as far as this is concerned. But to say that the capability-wise, the Pakistan Air Force training-wise and equipment-wise is far superior, I think will be a complete fallacy. Everyone is taking the example of the dogfight which took place between an F-16 and a MiG-21 Bison. Okay, whatever happened, the response went from Srinagar airfield, and what was stationed at Srinagar airfield were MiG-21 Bisons at that particular time. But we must also not forget that although Pakistan is in denial of F-16 having been shot down at this time, that aspect is still very much alive. And we have not been able to prove it. That's a different issue. But to classify capability based on a single incident, I think is the most foolish way of assessing capability of an organization such as the Indian Air Force. And I think the Indian Air Force Chief, the former Indian Air Force Chief, Air Chief Marshal Dhanoa, has just recently come out and with an interview and stated exactly what the situation as far as the Indian Air Force is concerned. I have no doubt that the government of India is fully seized of it, and hopefully more allocation of resources, financial resources, will ensure that the capital acquisitions are such, and we make up the numbers as far as both the equipment is concerned, the Air Force equipment is concerned, and their training capability is concerned.
Pulwama attack is considered a large intelligence failure. Though after the attack, the terrorists are being continuously wiped out. So, do you see any positive changes in Valley?
See, firstly, I know that a lot of people in the strategic community, in the public, have classified the Pulwama incident as a classic intelligence failure. There are different ways of looking at it. I consider this that 100% security is never possible. Even the case of 9/11, after all, 19 terrorists could get through and hijack 4 aircraft and destroy 2 major iconic buildings in a city like New York. Now, that was the classic case of intelligence failure. It changed the history of the world. It's happened in Brussels, it's happened in Madrid, it's happened in London or in Paris, despite the most advanced intelligence systems. So to say that Pulwama was a classic intelligence failure, to my mind, well, we got to take it with a pinch of salt. But having said that, there is no doubt that thereafter, the record of the Indian Army and the security forces and the intelligence agencies has been excellent. I would even classify that the record of the intelligence agencies going back, let's say, even 10 to 12 years has been excellent, where since 26/11, there has been no major incident outside Jammu and Kashmir. It's primarily been either in the Jammu region or in the Kashmir region that you've had major terrorist strikes, nowhere else. So to that extent, I think the intelligence community has done a yeoman service as far as the nation is concerned. And it has also been able to very largely neutralize a tremendous amount of networks in Kashmir in the last 1 year. The very fact that after the momentous decisions of 5th of August, the fact that we have been able to keep Kashmir silent in terms of not the public outrage, but in terms of the security potential of possibilities of Pakistan-sponsored events taking place, I think a lot of credit for that should also go to the intelligence agencies. The fact that the mobile internet is down, was brought down and today is not restored back to the 4G status, has definitely compromised our own intelligence as much as it has compromised the capability of different adversaries. So the real test of this will come when the full 4G status is restored to the internet, and we hope that our intelligence capability will only enhance with that.